Oh.
All right, Coach, you want to open it up?
Sure. Welcome, everybody, back. Annual time of the year to talk about, what we've all been anticipating, which is obviously the start of our first time together. And continue to be really, really excited and really fortunate to be representing IU. Our staff and our staff's families have been treated with the utmost courtesy and care. And it's a great place to be in terms of living in Bloomington and being a part of something that's really, really special. And we felt that. And as we get ready to start our first season together, we're all very, very comfortable here and really focused, to be honest with you, in trying to do the things that we all want to do. I'll address, college basketball setting right now. That way I think we can get some things out of the way. And I'm as surprised as anyone, just like 99% probably of the basketball world about what's going on. I've had very little information other than what you guys have. So I'll probably stay away from commenting on the actual facts. When it comes to Arizona, obviously very prideful there with my family. And I've been able to talk to Sean only one time, very briefly, to add my support. Brings it back to Indiana. I've, obviously, as a staff and myself, have met with Fred multiple times, and we've talked about a lot of things and have no reason to think that Indiana is involved in anything right now. And we're focused on the task, so to speak, at hand, which running this program was clearly defined, I think, on day one, and the expectations of doing things the right way. And, with that, we'll kind of put that to bed. First practice as the Indiana head coach on Friday afternoon. It's really, really an exciting thing for me. Our team has continued to really stay with it. We had an excellent summer together. As you get to the fall, we're in our preseason mode, which for us, we spent 2 days a week on the floor as a team in a practice setting. So we've continued to sort of build the foundation through the fall. We've had some guys do some excellent things, improving their bodies, improving their game, and obviously starting to understand the way we do things, how we play. It has been interesting to see. So now that we get ready to start and you're with them every single day, this is a time that we hope to really take some steps and start to really gain some ground where we can start to see the benefits of playing the style we're going to play with the people that in the right roles. Role definition has really been interesting so far. And I think that's where we're, as a staff, teaching things the right way and then creating roles is something we're going to try and do here in the next 3 to 4 weeks. I think that the leadership on our team has clearly came back to the same guys. I think our older players have really done an outstanding job of taking the reins of the team, showing by example, and then continuing to improve themselves. Robert Johnson, I think I've said this multiple times, I've never seen a guy as motivated physically to be where he's at right now. He's probably the best conditioned player that I've ever been around. And that's not to say our other guys aren't doing a great job, but I think Rob has really stood out from a fall perspective in a preseason of really continuing to stay on the course of wanting to have a great year. He's talked more. I think that Colin Hartman and Josh Newkirk, two guys that have really brought a spirit when I'm around, that they're the way that they communicate with each other and their teammates bring such a positive vibe, even when they're not doing well personally. And I think that's been a big step. I think that, our juniors, and I look at Juwan in particular, and I think Juwan has an opportunity to really create a new vision for himself from a basketball perspective. He's a tremendous kid, a hard worker. But I think he's having to learn a little bit about responsibility of production. He's going to be asked to do things and get production in a way that he hasn't, and that's been interesting to kind of see how he's developed. Not getting down on himself if things aren't going well because, he's going to be needed to do things not only with his voice but his game. I continue to look at our sophomore class with Deron, Devontae, and Curtis as being pivotal guys with different roles that can continue to keep Indiana as a team that's continuing to compete, to win, and do things. And those guys, have really answered the bell. They all are doing a really nice job for us. Our 3 freshmen have stayed as consistent as any group I've been around. I think all 3 of them are terrific additions as people and players. I also think that they have been a very, very mature group on and off the court, which has added a lot of value to our program. They're very businesslike. They care. They work very, very hard. And they're all learning the game in a fast way. And I think the big thing for those guys is to stay the course here early in the year and find their niche. And, the other guys have all had great off seasons and falls as well, from Zach McRoberts to Freddie McSwain to Tim Priller. I know I'm probably missing some guys here. But in general, I'm very, very pleased as we enter practice. I guess I can open it up right now, and you guys can kind of have at it a little bit. I think that'll paint a clearer picture for what we're getting ready to head into. Yes, sir. You got it, JD?
I've got,
Okay.
I've got a microphone. Go with Pete first, and then we'll go to Bob. Want to take him to Mike? Pete?
Oh, well, thank you. Archie, Pete DePremio, IU Athletics. Just how do you see the defense shaping up? I'm sure it's not where you want it to be yet, but where is it at, and where do you need it to be?
We've spent, I'd say, 75-25 in our team workouts, defense to offense. We're having the base stuff put in. We're building. We're not as sophisticated as we're going to be, but I think from a base perspective, our team is learning what we're about, especially in the half court. It's an adjustment. It's really an adjustment. It's repetition after repetition. It's technique after technique. It's film after film from this point forward. But I think we'll be, a team that hopefully can continue to really improve. Sometimes it's going to take games. These guys are going to have to experience it in a game, see it on film in a game. And that's kind of what's happened throughout my coaching careers. You develop defensively as a team just as well as you do offensively. I don't expect on day one we're going to be, the steel curtain, so to speak. But I think that we're going to be a team that prides itself on that. Our guys know that. And individual defenders will improve just like they do on offense. But we're sticking to the script. We started in the summer, and we'll be here in the fall. And I think from our practice perspective right now, we're going to try and be great on both, but we're spending an abnormal amount of time on it.
Archie, Bob Kravitz with WTHR in Indianapolis. What areas do you feel really confident about this team, and what are some of the real challenges that you think you face heading into this season?
I would say that some of the things that I feel good about is I feel like having a physically strong backcourt with Robert and Josh and Devontae and Curtis and a young Al. That's a 5-man crew that I feel is sturdy, strong, and should be able to compete on both ends of the floor regardless of who we play. I think shooting is something that I'm hoping can be a strength. I've watched our team over the course of the spring and summer and fall. We have a lot of guys right now, I think, that take some pride in being able to shoot the ball. So I think we can stretch the floor a little bit. Concerned is obviously, going into things, learning how to win doing things our way. They're not going to understand how to win doing things our way yet. And, being able to compete and win tough games on the road or at home or early in the season, we're not going to be as familiar or as good at our stuff as we would have been normally if it's a team that's been together 2 or 3 years. And I also think that when you look at our front court depth, that's definitely something that you have to keep in mind in terms of how deep are we really in the games when it comes to the front court with fouls and whatnot. So developing a rotation there and having guys that can maybe play multiple positions is something that we're considering.
Archie, Ken Bykoff, Peegs.com, Inside Indiana. It's at the point guard position, or at least ball handler, for triggering the offense. Josh Newkirk got a lot of time there last year. Just what are you looking for from your point guards, and who's kind of emerged as those guys that are going to be able to run things?
Well, it's ironic. Josh has clearly established himself as a clear-cut point guard. I think that everybody else on our team can play a couple spots. I think Josh is primarily a point guard. That position for us is essential in running the show. You got to be able to push the ball, and you got to have great tempo. but you also have to be able to play smart when you're playing fast and be able to control it and playing with low turnovers. I mean, that's really about it. Guys who could potentially see at point guard, Al Durham, for sure. Robert could potentially see some time there. And I'm honestly thinking about looking at Devontae and some situations with the ball in his hands as a point guard, just because I think Devontae can really be creative at times off the bounce and create things for he and others. But primary roles right now, I see Josh and I see, as I named them, those guys all playing a role, and then we'll have to see how it goes.
Hey, Archie. I'm Mike Miller with the Bloomington Herald-Times. Just as far as role definition, do you see any similarities with this group and some of the teams you've coached in the past as far as guys who can play multiple positions and kind of space it out a little bit? Yeah,
I think so. We had a lot of versatility at Dayton just because of undersized, and I think we have some of those guys here. You're going to look to see guys like Juwan being able to stretch the floor for you. Can a guy like Justin Smith as a young freshman play multiple positions? I don't know. I think Zach McRoberts adds value with that. Can do a lot of good things playing multiple positions. But we're going to give our team the freedom here early to experience some mistakes with multiple ball handlers in transition and a lot of guys handling the ball in the half court that maybe they haven't done as much in the past. But, yeah, it's similar. We have some guys that can really do a lot of different things.
Archie, Zach Osterman, Indianapolis Star. I apologize. Just to circle back around one more time to kind of the broader issues you were addressing with college basketball up front. Does any of this kind of change the way everything works day to day for you right now? Do you talk to players about being more careful? I mean, I know there's just so much that's kind of uncertain at this point. Does any of it change sort of the way you go about it day to day, or do you just kind of stay abreast of it and just do things business as usual?
We're business as usual here. I think just in regards to us and our staff, we're business as usual. We're approaching things very, very similar to the way we do things day to day. I think everyone's probably taking a step back and is obviously a little bit reserved or a little bit guarded. But as you look at your own players and whatnot, you have to remind them with great urgency to do things the right way. And I don't have any reason to believe they're not.
Alex Bozich, InsideTheHall.com. Archie, I'm curious about Clifton Moore, and you mentioned the front court depth, and at this point kind of the development you've seen out of him since he got here, and where you maybe envision him fitting in the front court this season.
Well, Cliff is the one thing Clifton has really done is he's put on about 14 pounds since the first day on campus, so he's right around 220 right now, and that's helping him, but he's still not strong enough because he's so young. I mean, he's such a young kid. But he's got to learn the game as a front court player on both ends of the floor as a freshman. The physicality standpoint is a little different for him right now. And then from an offensive standpoint, put him in situations where he can be successful and where you can use him. I feel that as if Cliff, and because of the way he works and is gifted athletically and talented, will show glimpses as a freshman of what he can be. My hope is that he can help us at multiple positions in the front court with our depth. And I think that as the season applies into January, February, and March, you could see a guy really blossom into what we think is going to be a star one day. But early on here, he's like, I don't want to say wet behind the ears or a little young, but he's like a slippery guy on ice skates out there at times, just getting his footing. But you've seen him go in big jumps week to week, where he is. From a conditioning level, from a mobility standpoint, he's as gifted as any player I've ever been around. And I think that speaks volumes. His length is something that you can't really judge offensively and defensively in terms of being able to make some plays. So he's got great attributes that he can be good, but he's got to learn the college game like every young guy does.
Jeff Rabjohns, Peegs.com. Who do you feel are most likely your 3 or 4 best offensive players, the guys you look at to get the offensive production at this point?
I think Duran is a very gifted offensive player for all the things that people want to see in front court players, jumping, all that good stuff. Duran has terrific footwork, amazing hands, and great touch, and I think he can score the ball for us. I think Robert's a proven scorer over the time in his college career and will continue to do that. With minutes and how it's dispersed, I think that Juwan has to become an offensive threat. Juwan has to become more of an offensive-minded player from a production standpoint, and he's got great skills. I think he's got to do it consistently over a course of some months. But I think Juwan has the ability, and not that everyone can't score, obviously. I look at Devontae as a guy that can get his own shot, a guy that can create for himself off of ball screens and get to the basket, get fouled and whatnot. So, as I look at the shooting on our team, guys like Curtis, guys like Colin, those guys, have made shots, in workouts and whatnot. So, you always have the ability with shooting on the floor to get a guy that, can stretch it a little bit. But, I'm probably leaving, like I said, you always leave some guys off. I think, you look at a guy like Josh. Josh finished the season last year really strong, scoring about 10 a game. So, but from a pure, how are we going to operate getting scores, I look at Deron, I look at Robert, I look at guys like Juwan as being guys that we can really focus in on sometimes and get them touches.
Charlie, would you raise your hand so we get a mic back to you? Dave, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. Dave Calabro, Channel 13. Talk a little bit about Colin Hartman. What makes him so special, and what have you seen from him in the offseason? How's he coming along?
Well, he's got a great attitude, number one. He's got a great feel and IQ for the game. He understands how to play. He's smart. And I think physically he's, from what I can tell, just not asking him, physically I think he's confident, which is a good thing. He's in great shape. And just looking at his mobility and whatnot, I don't think he's a guy that's a little bit tentative. I think he's comfortable right now with who he is in terms of mobility. So I think it'll take, like I said, it's going to take him some time to get through 5-on-5 playing to get his true rhythm back. But he definitely has a great feel and IQ. You can tell he's smart. But attitude more than anything, leadership, unquestioned, every day you know what you're getting.
Archie, Charlie Clifford, Wish TV, Indianapolis. That 2.5-week stretch, Duke, Michigan, Iowa, Louisville, Notre Dame. Have you ever been through anything like that in a non-conference slate, and how interested are you to see how these guys respond to those 2.5 weeks?
Well, this is probably as challenging of a schedule as anyone has probably ever faced, just due to the fact of the condensed schedule, the advanced Big Ten games early in December, and the amount of games that we're going to play in between. It's going to put a real tax on the bodies. But early, our non-conference schedule is one of which that's going to provide a lot of information on what we're going to need to do to be successful through the course of the regular season in Big Ten play. You're playing against legit high major teams. We have really good players, great coaches. You're not always going to be at home, and we're going to get, so to speak, punched a lot. And we're going to figure out how we respond to those things. We're going to figure out how we can improve from those things. And we're obviously going to go into those games with a group of people that have their antennas up that you have to be ready tonight or it's not going to work out well for you. So, but I think it's definitely as challenging of a schedule as we've had, and I think it's going to teach us, what we're going to need to be this year.
Archie, this is Mike Pegram from Peegs.com. You've coached some New York City area guards before. Do you see some of those same traits in Devontae Green? Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to ask you how Race Thompson is doing.
Well, Devontae, yes, he's definitely an East Coast guard. He's got a lot of confidence in himself. He's got a lot of city in his game in terms of how he maneuvers, plays. He's got a lot of style. Now we got to take a little bit of the style, tone it down to just get a layup. Doesn't need to be that pretty type of thing, or don't try to make the play every single time. But he's done a really nice job, and I think in identifying him here early, he's a guy that, I think he can really thrive with how we play. He's got to do it within our framework, but I think he can, and he has definitely got a little East Coast to him, and he's competitive as well, especially in the practice setting. The thing I like about Devontae, when focused, has been tremendous defensively. He's given me great confidence that he could be an Indiana defender, maybe here earlier than some of the other guys. He's got great instincts, great quickness, physical, tough, and I think just more so than anything, when you look at both sides of the ball, I think he's got some of that. Race has done a phenomenal job, very difficult challenge, enrolling in school, no summer. You have to basically take on what these other freshmen did for 6 weeks, and you have to do it right away. And he's done a great job. One, he's got to rehabilitate, rebuild, and recondition his body. He's a high school senior, and he's gotten through 30 days, and he's done a good job with it. But he's got 9, 10 months ahead of him where that's going to be a big priority. He's gotten off to a great start off the floor in school, and he also is a tremendous kid. So we're happy about Race's development. The thing I like about Race right now is that he's being thrown in the fire and being asked to do a lot, and he's getting better. And he has shown great feel and IQ for a young front court player. Can really pass it, can put it down. Is going to be a three-point shooter in his time. What he lacks right now, and maybe some mobility and athleticism, we're hoping that in the 10 months, that catches up to him and his body is stronger. But in terms of understanding the game, for a young guy being thrown in the mix, we've been really impressed.
Hi, Coach. Tricia Whitaker, CBS 4. I guess I know you touched on the schedule a little bit and how tough that's going to be, but is it tough trying to find a realistic expectation for this team right now? I know you said it's kind of an adjustment. Is it tough to find that expectation and set that expectation when everything is so new for everyone?
Yeah, I think great question. It's very difficult for our staff or anything to put expectations on anything. The expectation for us right now is to do things properly every phase of the day and let that sort of carry over and become our habits. And, we're not going to win any games right now. What we have to do is become the best team we can be. We have to become a team that's more familiar not only with one another, but chemistry. You have to have chemistry. Guys have to know where they're at, where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be doing. So developing great chemistry, developing great competitiveness, and getting better at the things that we have to do to win games is the continued process. It's just day to day. And then, I think as we get to the games, let's see where we're at. But the expectation level for us is to be ready every single day, and that's going to be a great way of getting started that we'll be ready to play when the games start.
Hey, Archie, it's Andy Graham from IU Athletics. I think it's fair to say that Indiana has a sophisticated fan base in terms of folks that have watched a lot of basketball. What can they expect to see, if you could go into a little bit of detail, whether talking about backline, man-to-man, or whatever, in terms of your preferred approach to play with this team? What can they look for stylistically and schematically?
Well, I think number one, I love for our teams to be identified as hard playing. We have to be a team that plays hard. And learning how to play hard through wins and losses is something that's very difficult to do. You take one thing that you don't do, great teams never do, regardless, they're never out of the game. And we have to become, number one, a really hard playing team. The other thing is we have to be a team that's really connected, a team that plays hard but covers for one another, that's very aggressive, and you understand that the guys behind you have your back and you're allowed to be aggressive. From an offensive standpoint, great spacing, hopefully great tempo and pace, and the ball moves. And not just moves around, but moves in and out. And a team that hopefully can establish a team that plays inside out, that moves the ball, that has great spacing. Pace of play, movement, defensively great effort, and hopefully great connection.
Coach Mike Lissette from WDRB in Louisville, Kentucky. I know you said you talked with Athletic Director Fred Glass a couple times about this, but I think a lot of people are looking at the Adidas connection here at the school. What kinds of things did you guys talk about, and how did he ensure you, or did you ensure him, that this in fact was a clean program?
Well, Fred and I have discussed things from the first day conversation on the telephone. They've always been the same. I think our relationship with Adidas over the course of not only his tenure but my short tenure has been great, and we look forward to continuing it. But we have no reason to believe anything else.
You talked about Duran, and you've talked about Duran since the spring, but I know you're still kind of gearing up for full practice. But as you think about kind of the Duran you worked with in the limited workouts in the spring and the one that you're getting ready to see here when practice opens, what are the biggest differences in your mind?
Well, the biggest difference for Duran is going to be to do it every single day. You have to be able to bring it every single day. You can't have a couple good days and then all of a sudden, you kind of tail in. So the effort level and the ability to do it from the start to the finish with great consistency and technique and not taking plays off, that's a big thing for him. Not being lazy at times defensively, things like that. We'll be really on top of Duran in terms of the technique and the effort level, because when you don't have those two things, you foul. And you can't afford that with him. From an offensive perspective, he has great feel. We have to be able to get him the ball. And I think that the more he touches the ball, the better our team will be, because he can pass. He's got great feel. I think he can score the ball and get fouled. But he also, to me, has a presence. And to me, I'm really hopeful that Duran, and talking to him, is ready. to try and take this on, because it's not going to be as easy as he thinks it is. And I think his conditioning level is 1,000 times better. I think his intelligence on what we're trying to get him to do is, really starting to move in the right direction. But it's going to be a lot of pressure applied to him from our staff for being where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there. The laziness and the lack of effort in terms of running the floor back on defense or offense is going to be the difference between you playing 25 minutes and 16 minutes in some games. So that's an understanding of how hard he's going to have to work within our system. But I think that De'Ron's ready, and I look forward to watching him develop. I think he's got a great feel for how to play the game on offense. What we've got to get him to do is be really, really smart defensively.
Coach Ken Bykoff from Peegs again. You mentioned Devontae Green thinking he could be an Indiana defender. What do you define as an Indiana defender? How do you envision that?
Kind of hard to show you, I guess, without video. I think when you see it, you know it. And after watching our guys at Dayton, under our tenure there, that have become Dayton defenders, you see the talent level. You see sort of the mindset at times where a guy, is obviously very, very calculated and smart and can get places at time. And you see the toughness. You see the approach that, as a coach, you want to see working in a stance, down. And also feel IQ, can talk and communicate. So kind of hard to show you without film, but I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've seen guys, really, really work defensively in my time, in coaching, and I think he's a guy that has the talent to do it.
All right, Coach, thank you for your time.
Thank you.